Subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon and never miss an update from Latestly.
There has been intense fighting on Ukrainian territory, which has claimed many lives, has caused extensive displacement, and has resulted in widespread damage. The court is acutely aware of the extent of the human tragedy that is taking place in Ukraine and is deeply concerned about the continuing loss of life and human suffering. The court is profoundly concerned about the use of force by the Russian Federation in Ukraine, which raises very serious issues of international law. The court is mindful of the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter and of its own responsibilities in the maintenance of international peace and security, as well as the peaceful settlement of disputes under the Charter and the statute of the court. It deems it necessary to emphasize that all states must act in conformity with their obligations under the United Nations Charter and other rules of international law, including international humanitarian law. The ongoing conflict between the parties has been addressed in the framework of several international institutions. The General Assembly of the United Nations adopted a resolution referring to many aspects of the conflict on 2 March 2022. The present case before the court, however, is limited in scope, as Ukraine has instituted these proceedings only under the Genocide Convention. The court wishes to express its regret at the decision taken by the Russian Federation not to participate in the oral proceedings on the request for indication of provisional measures. The non-appearance of a party has a negative impact on the sound administration of justice, as it deprives the court of assistance that a party could have provided to it. Nevertheless, the court must proceed in the discharge of its judicial function at any phase of the case. Though formally absent from the proceedings, non-appearing parties sometimes submit to the court letters and documents in ways and by means not contemplated by its rules. It is valuable for the court to know the views of both parties in whatever form those views may have been expressed. The court will therefore take account of the document communicated by the Russian Federation on 7 March 2022 to the extent that it finds this appropriate in discharging its duties. The court recalls that the non-appearance of one of the states concerned cannot in itself constitute an obstacle to the indication of provisional measures. It emphasizes that the non-participation of a party in the proceedings at any stage of the case cannot in any circumstances affect the validity of its decision. Should the present case extend beyond the current phase, the Russian Federation, which remains a party to the case, will be able, if it so wishes, to appear before the court to present its arguments. The court may indicate provisional measures only if the provisions relied on by the applicant appear prima facie to afford a basis on which its jurisdiction could be founded, but it need not satisfy itself in a definitive manner that it has jurisdiction as regards the merits of the case. In the present case, Ukraine seeks to found the jurisdiction of the court on Article 36, Paragraph 1 of the statute of the court, and on Article 9 of the Genocide Convention. The court must therefore first determine whether those provisions prima facie confer upon it jurisdiction to rule on the merits of the case, enabling it, if the other necessary conditions are fulfilled, to indicate provisional measures. Article 9 of the Genocide Convention reads as follows, I quote, "Disputes between the contracting parties relating to the interpretation, application, or fulfillment of the present convention, including those relating to the responsibility of a state for genocide or for any of the other acts enumerated in Article 3, shall be submitted to the International Court of Justice at the request of any of the parties to the dispute." In light of the foregoing, the court concludes that prima facie it has jurisdiction pursuant to Article 9 of the Genocide Convention to entertain the case. Given the above conclusion, the court considers that it cannot accede to the Russian Federation's request that the case be removed from the general list for manifest lack of jurisdiction. Under these circumstances, the court considers that Ukraine has a plausible right not to be subjected to military operations by the Russian Federation for the purpose of preventing and punishing an alleged genocide in the territory of Ukraine. The court considers that the right of Ukraine that it has found to be plausible is of such a nature that prejudice to it is capable of causing irreparable harm. Indeed, any military operation, in particular one on the scale carried out by the Russian Federation on the territory of Ukraine, inevitably causes loss of life, mental and bodily harm, and damage to property and the environment. The court considers that the civilian population affected by the present conflict is extremely vulnerable. The, quote, special military operation, end of quote, being conducted by the Russian Federation has resulted in numerous civilian deaths and injuries. It has also caused significant material damage, including the destruction of buildings and infrastructure. Attacks are ongoing and are creating increasingly difficult living conditions for the civilian population. The court considers that, with regard to the situation described above, the Russian Federation must, pending the final decision in the case, suspend the military operations that it commenced on 24 February 2022 in the territory of Ukraine. In addition, recalling the statement of the permanent representative of the Russian Federation to the United Nations that the, I quote, Donetsk People's Republic and the Lugansk People's Republic, end of quotation, had turned to the Russian Federation with a request to grant military support. The court considers that the Russian Federation must also ensure that any military or irregular armed units which may be directed or supported by it, as well as any organizations and persons which may be subject to its control and direction, take no steps in furtherance of those military operations.